Hey, Pommes. Woo, it feels really like November outside. Are we getting ready for this week's episode on pairing cider with Thanksgiving?
Yes. And I was just telling Mr. Quince that Thanksgiving is my Super Bowl.
Oh, brother.
And that we should start with a Perry to welcome everyone.
Yes, and fresh pressed apple juice.
A cheese board with a little quince paste. If no one swoons, within 30 seconds, send them home.
Wow, Mr. Quince.
And maybe some Medlar jam.
Oh, my goodness. I'm both hungry and thirsty, and we haven't even started yet. We better get going.
Roger that.
Hello, my name is Ria Wincaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world. Hello, Ciderville, and welcome to all the new folks checking out Cider Chat for the first time. This cider-centric podcast has been on the air since 2015, so this is the 10th year of the podcast, and we have approaching 500 episodes in the archives. They're all there for you to download and enjoy. And if you don't know where to start, well, just pick a topic in the world of apples and cider and have a go at it. There's a little search bar at ciderchat.com. You could put in a topic such as apple identification, and there's an episode on that. Or perhaps you're traveling. Well, we have cider tours. And there are plenty of episodes on cider making, whether you are trying cider making for the first time or you are a seasoned commercial maker. You're going to find something at Cider Chat. But the biggest thing for Cider Chat is how it connects voices from all over the globe. And that's really what jazzes me up. And I think it's probably why so many folks out there in Ciderville are checking out this here podcast each and every week to know what's happening with your neighbor. And that really ties into what this episode's about, which is the holiday called Thanksgiving. Now, if you don't know what Thanksgiving is in your special spot of Ciderville, allow me to just give you a brief overview, because this is really one of my most favorite holidays. You see, Thanksgiving in the United States is not just a meal. It's a 4-day cultural pattern. It really begins on Wednesday for most folks, which is the Great Migration Day. And that's where you hear about the flights going on and the highways and all that. If you're lucky enough to arrive early for the Thanksgiving meal, it's always highly recommended. But anyways, Wednesday is a Great Migration Day. People travel from every corner. Airports are packed, cars are bumper to bumper. It is a classic over the river, through the woods moment. And it's all about families reuniting and the kitchen beginning to smell like herbs and roasted squash and pies being made. It's just a little bit of loving chaos everywhere. And then Thursday is the official day of Thanksgiving. And it is a feast. There's turkey as the classic tradition or vegetarian centerpieces. You have stuffing, cranberry sauces, pies, my favorite being pumpkin. Some households eat at 2 in the afternoon. Some wait until the evening. Some people even go out to restaurants to eat. So nobody's cooking. So there's a lot of different ways that folks approach this. Many watch American football on television, and most people graze all day, myself included. Friday is what many Americans call the day after. It's slower. Leftovers are king. Cold turkey sandwiches are just to die for. You just wait for them all year long. And the stuffing is reheated, and you just wow your senses again. It's also a day when many people go for walks or hikes, and it's a good day for digesting and remembering why you like the people that you are with. I really think that's one of the best parts of Thanksgiving, besides the food and the cider that you get to enjoy. But I also have to mention, Thanksgiving can actually cause a lot of stress because it brings together families, and not all families are really copacetic in that place of sitting at a table, and there can be really high expectations to do it just so, or to have a certain kind of silverware, and it has to be made this particular way, which can kind of bung up the whole scene. So I often like to say, caution yourself with just the expectation, just to be thankful for the fact that those that you love are nearby.
Save my seat.
You got it, Medlars. You're sitting right next to me.
Perfect.
Saturday is part social, part personal. It's more gathering, perhaps, and more leftovers. And then, of course, Sunday is the coasting day out where people begin to travel back home. Suitcases are getting packed again. The last piece of pie might vanish with morning coffee. That is the shape of Thanksgiving. It's a 4-day arc of arrival, feasting, and it really is spot on for Cider and Perry because that is exactly what those two drinks and all the different orchard libations do for us. It creates a pause in the glass to sip and savor that moment and just go, ah. So that's what we're in for. We're going to be talking about pairing your glass with the Thanksgiving meal and hopefully making it a little bit easier for you when you are tasked with bringing that bottle for your dinner coming up. We'll be with that future presentation soon. But first, I have a wee bit of news from out and about in Ciderville. Coming up in 2026, I have 2 Totally Cider tours heading out to the UK and France. We're going to be in the UK for the Blossom Tour. That's April 27th through May 3rd. This is a springtime in the cider country in the best way possible. It's a moment when the orchards are in bloom, the hedgerows are waking up, and the land is glowing in that very particular English light. This tour will take us to Somerset, Herefordshire, Gloucestershire, and we'll experience traditional orcharding, Perry pears, and the makers that define this region. The second tour is the French Totally Cider Tour that will be taking place September 20th through the 26th. The tour begins and ends in Paris, and from there we move into Normandy and Brittany. We'll have cider, Poirier, Calvados, and visit historic towns, seaside markets, private cider dinners, and have some orchard visits that most travelers will never get access to. And yes, this tour includes a private cider dinner with fine cider makers such as Joanne Sicilian and Louis Sicilian, and another cider dinner with Eric Bordelais. Both tours are limited, both tours are curated to the highest level, and both tours are meant for cider curious and cider devoted. Reservations will be opening soon, so if you want to get your name on the wait list so that you receive first notice the moment reservations open, send an email to info@ciderchat.com. There are 2 fun events happening in New York City on November 14th and 15th. So I am sure hoping that you're listening to this episode, which goes live on the 12th, so you could secure your tickets now, at least for one of the events. On the 14th, you don't have to worry about that. You could show up. And this is going to be a really fun event. It's going to be taking place at Red Hook Cidery, which is over in Brooklyn. So you could come in like I am on the train. I land in Grand Central, and then I'll just take a little bit of public transport over to Red Hook Cidery, which I don't believe is a production site for cider making. What they do have is a really nice list of New York ciders. They also have beer and wine and some small bites. And the event that's going to be taking place there is called a Cider Share. So it's on Friday night, the 14th, from 7 to 9 p.m. There is not a fee for this event. It's being hosted by the Cider Society and I believe the New York Cider Association. And this is a kickoff event to the following day's event, which is the New York Cider Fest. So New York, a lot of stuff happening, of course, right? It's a city that never sleeps. So Friday night, the 14th, Cider Share. And this is not a fee. There's no tickets necessary. Just bring a bottle to share. It could be your own cider or someone else's cider that you would like to share and talk about with others and meet cool other like-minded cider people. The next day on Saturday at City Winery, which is just kind of flanking the Hudson River, which is on the west side of Manhattan. This is an event space, and that's when the New York Cider Festival will take place. The doors open for VIP ticket holders at 11 a.m., and it goes till 3. And that's going to be fun. It's going to be all New York cider makers, and I highly recommend always, to any of these events, always go VIP. That means early access. You have a lot of space to move about. Talk to the makers when they're not full-on pouring the cups for everybody. So if you want to just enjoy Saturday with some cider at a really nice event space, check out the New York Cider Fest. You could get tickets at NewYorkCiderAssociation.org. And I will be at both events, likely with a microphone in hand, even on Friday night. So if you see me and you listen to Cider Chat, do let me know. I would love to meet you then. Dancing in the streets. Yes, I have been known to dance in the streets, and I imagine in New York City, where there's plenty of them, I may be dancing in the street, not only on Friday, but on Saturday. So you never know. Okay. Maybe you'll be dancing with me. Up next is our featured presentation on the 2025 Ultimate Cider Pairing Guide for Thanksgiving. In my mind, every holiday works really well with Cider and Perry, but that's just me. I'm the host of Cider Chat. So for you out there in Ciderville, if you're thinking, should I really do it for Thanksgiving or not? Let me tell you, this is the ideal feast to pair with Cider and Perry. I mean, there is no other drink that goes better with a Thanksgiving feast. And because of that, we're going to be drawing you in to make it super, super easy for your shopping list. And I'm kind of like talking to the person out there who is tasked with bringing that bottle to the table. And maybe you just have to do one of the bottles. I'm going to cover like the complete course, where we'll begin with starters, then the main course, and desserts. In order to make this as easy as possible, I have created a little Thanksgiving cider shopping checklist that you could find in the show notes for this here episode 477. You just go to ciderchat.com, put in the little link there, 477, and up will come the show notes. And you could download the PDF, you could take a screenshot, and maybe send it to somebody who you have said, hey, can you bring some cider? And this will give them some ideas so they're not just randomly being overwhelmed by what's in front of them. And around my parts where I live, we call our shops package stores, which sell beer, wine, cider, and spirits. Maybe it's called something different wherever you are. But on the list, it's going to say, grab one high-acid sparkler and look for dry, crisp, and bright. And that's what you're going to be looking for on the label. And then it goes down to say if there are only two choices on the shelf, pick one dry or crisp, and it typically will say that on the label, and one sweet or semi-sweet. Remember, dry for the bird, sweet for dessert. Everything else fits between those two different areas. And then there are some questions you could ask when you're in the store, such as you could just ask, do you have a dry or crisp cider? And the person working there will probably be able to direct you one way or the other. And there's a couple other different questions too, such as, do you have anything with tannin or traditional cider apples? Do you have anything slightly sweeter for dessert? So these are things to just really help you. And maybe I'm talking to you and you're totally informed already, which is fan-freaking-tastic. But there is a whole bunch of us out there who need this help. I mean, even though I've been doing this for a long time, sometimes I go into a store and I get overwhelmed by the choices. Sometimes I just have too many choices, and where do I start? And instead of always grabbing like the familiar, it's nice to step out of that loop sometime and try something new. And this will just give you a framework for that. So that's something that we have for you. Again, it's at ciderchat.com. Go to the show notes for episode 477. Take a screenshot or just download that PDF or send it to your family member or friend so that they could bring something that's going to fit with the meal at hand, because that's really what it's all about, is pairing and meshing it to just get the ultimate flavor profile. All right, moving on. Let's talk about starters. I'm looking at this glass as that initial welcoming. It could be right after folks come into the door and you hand them something then, or perhaps it's at the table where there's a bit of noshing, or you're at the table and you're serving a starter before the actual main dish of the turkey and all the fixings. So at this point, there's a lot of options, and I really recommend start with something that is both sparkling and bright for that first pour. And this is where cider can really feel elegant. So think about the glass. Choose a champagne glass. I have these like old kind of retro, not fluted glass, but that little like round saucer glass with a short stem that you would see maybe even like a little martini in. I use that for cider. In fact, anytime I go to the bar, I always ask for a wine glass. So whatever you might have in the cupboard for glasses, pick something that is clear, that you can kind of see through, especially if there's bubbles. That's kind of fun. And it accentuates this as a celebration moment. So begin with a dry, sparkling cider. You can look for something like a champagne method or a pet knot. And the way you would tell that classically at like that high end would be a bottle that has a cork and cage. Right, the little cage kind of holds the cork in, the classic like champagne bottle. And there's lots of traditional method ciders being made. This is a perfect moment for that, for a very dry, sparkling cider. You also want something that's a little acid forward, maybe some co-ferments. This is a good time for serving that collab of apples and quince and maybe pears, or a bright fruit cider. Something that would be a little bit lower ABV would be a lightly spiced cider spritzer. And then there's also some options for a mocktail idea. You could have a sparkling cider that is non-alcoholic. There's a number on the market now. And put in a little splash of ginger shrub and with a little citrus twist to make it kind of fancy. And you could also do a cocktail idea. This would be an apple brandy with sparkling cider and a cranberry bitter. So that's your range there. Just keep it really bright, really cheery, but not sugary. Kind of hold that, right? If you're going to go for that sweeter profile, save that for dessert. I will admit I'm really into setting a mood. I do curated tours. I like to facilitate that in a way that you're really marking each moment and doing what I call the perfect transition. So this is the welcoming. This is like the beginning of what will hopefully be an outstanding time with all. So you're leading it by offering certain drinks and certain pairings with food that really celebrate that moment and set the stage moving forward. So we call this the aperitif, right? That it's opening up the senses, lightening up the mouth. That's why you want that sparkling, bright cider. You could also have a Perry here too. I just want to mention that if you are able to get a Perry, do it. This is a lovely time to do it. And also it's a great talking point because a lot of people don't know what a Perry is and how it could deliver. And it can certainly wow you. In fact, on the recent Totally Cider tour to the UK with Tom Oliver, our stop there, the first drink he served was a Perry, and the alcohol by volume was, I think it was 1.9%. It was outstanding. It was fan-freaking-tastic. But I know that could be a little bit difficult to get. But perhaps if you are in the UK, you could seek out that Perry from Tom. Do it. Oliver Cider and Perry Company, 1.9%. You know, that is what the right type of fruit can do in the bottle. All right, I'm going to hold my thoughts on that. Anyways, without overwhelming you too much, this is the beginning. Again, for the starters, for that welcoming, a dry, sparkling cider or Perry. Everyone's main course for Thanksgiving varies based on different family traditions, particular dishes that you absolutely have to have on the table, perhaps a different culture that you're part of. It really depends on you and your experience. But one thing for certain is that there's going to be a cider or a Perry to match that. I kind of feel with a Thanksgiving meal, you just can't go wrong. And if you've been tasked with bringing a particular bottle of cider, say from Bent Ladder, which is based in Ohio, it's an orchard-based estate cidery, then by all means, order it today. You know, if somebody knows, hey, you could get this bottle from Bent Ladder right now, order it. Stop this episode now and make a note to self, order online at bentladder.com. For most of us, though, we're going to head to our local package store that sells cider and see what we could find on the shelf. So instead of focusing on a particular brand like Ohio's Bent Ladder, I'm hoping this episode will help you work with what you have locally. But just in case you hear this with plenty of time to order a select bottle, at the end of this episode, I will be sharing what I'm planning to have for my Thanksgiving dinner. So just kind of bear that in mind. And one of those bottles is going to be bent ladder. Anyways, let's get into the 4 main flavor lanes and what it looks like on the label when you're out shopping for your cider. So we have 4 main profiles for the main dish. We have the herb-driven roast. Like that's the rosemary, the thyme that people cook with turkey. Pretty classic. You might have smoked or charred mains. You definitely have some creamy, rich mains, right? That's like the potatoes. Oh, yeah, can't wait. Turnips, maybe. You also have roasted root vegetables, perhaps. So if you have these like 4 different areas, let's dig into it a little bit. Let's start with the turkey. Most of us out there in Ciderville are going to be putting our turkey in the oven, and I particularly like to stuff the bird with some stuffing, and on the outside I put a little bit of olive oil. I don't know why olive oil. I might put some avocado oil on it, a little bit of salt and pepper, and some seasoning such as rosemary or thyme. And with that type of bird, you want to have a dry, high-acid cider. So that's what you're going to be looking for on the label. Now, you might also have a smoked or charred main. In this case, it's where you do what I love to do, which is cook the turkey outside. I heat up a whole bunch of rocks, and I set up its own little oven outside and just hang out there, while it's cooking. It's just so much fun. So when you have anything that's smoked or charred on the dinner table for Thanksgiving, that's the time where you might want to look for a barrel-influenced cider, something that's been barrel aged, and it will say that on the label. Also goes really well with a very tannin-rich cider too. So the way to deal with this is not to just have one bottle, but maybe a couple bottles, because you also have your really creamy, rich mains, like the potatoes and the stuffing with the gravy. The dry, high-acid cider will go well with that. You could also have a semi-dry. And truthfully, it's kind of hard to really get a truly dry cider. Most of us in the U.S. are going to find semi-dry cider much more accessible in your different stores. So go for that. Don't worry. It's totally fine. If you have some roasted root vegetables, this is a time to bring out your kind of fruit ciders. So on the table, any Thanksgiving table, you come to my house, it's going to be a dry. You're going to have some barrel-aged ciders. We might have some fruit ciders. I don't have too many, but we might. But they're all going to be kind of sparkling. And classically, I don't put out a still cider, but that doesn't mean that you can't. It's really your own flavor profile. And in this case, what I really want to say to you is you can't go wrong. Go to the store, ask the clerk, do you have a dry cider? Is it really bright? Is it really, have a good acid to it? And they'll be able to hook you up, and you're going to be all set. So that's all you have to worry about. Go out and enjoy yourself. Don't worry. And if I could recommend, the only thing I would do different there is to grab a couple different styles, the high acid, the barrel aged, and a little sparkle to it. That's it. That's all you have to do. If you can't find the exact bottle, buy by style. Cider pairing is about structure, not the brand names in this case. Go with what you have, and you're going to be totally fine. I know that some of you might be going out on a limb here for the first time, trying to pair cider with Thanksgiving. So don't worry. Don't take it to one way or the other. Just enjoy yourself. Because I can speak from experience that it took a while for me to get my community, my family, my friends into cider at a level that was more fun. I mean, initially I'd bring a bottle and folks who like to drink wine would say, huh, and they might not even try it. And I'd be stuck with that whole bottle and feeling kind of like a dope. It's just that people fear what they don't know. I don't know why. It's just a human condition, right? And now it's totally opposite. I arrive and people will put away the Prosecco that they would typically pull out, or the bottle of white wine or sparkling champagne as that greeting. because they know I'm going to be bringing something for them to try, and they're excited to do that. And I've even experienced now where they say, "Oh, I've got this bottle of cider that I got from a local maker. You want to try it?" Yeah, I've been going there and picking up a case. I love that. That's like music to my ears. And they've realized now that the cider, the nice thing about serving cider with the main meal is it is half the alcohol of a glass of wine. So that alone is a good thing in my mind, because look, ABV matters. It certainly matters to me when I'm drinking, and I always try to kind of limit the level of the ABV when I'm serving and I'm hosting a gathering. In fact, I would really avoid it during the dinner. That's why a Keeve cider is really nice to have, because that's often much lower because of the way it's made. So you're getting something like a 4.5% ABV, which is really doable, right? You're not going to lose anything in the conversation, and it will keep the meal going. So that is one of the things that I am looking for when I am hosting or I'm bringing a product to an event, is not to get people all tankered up. You want to keep it a nice balance and look more at the pairing. What does it go with the food? So that might be something you just might want to share with somebody who's buying the cider for you. Say, hey, it doesn't have to be high alcohol. You're not buying a wine here at 11 to 13, 14%. You're getting cider. So 8.5 would be up at that upper mark there. You could go much lower too. Alrighty then. Up next, let's go to one of the best parts of the meal also. Okay, what part isn't good? But that is desserts. And now I am ready to eat my words, because with desserts, you can have a high ABV glass, something like an ice cider or a late harvest cider. What I mean by late harvest is that those are the cider apples that come off the tree much later. So you could have apples early in the summer, and then you have like the mid-fall, right? September, going into October, late October, November, and December, you're going to have a much more robust apple. So those late harvest ciders are really full flavored ciders, very complex, and they might have a little bit higher ABV. This is also a great time to serve a Perry. So let's say you have those apple desserts like pie or crisp, maybe an apple cake. You could definitely pair that with an ice cider or a late harvest cider, because the concentrated apple flavor really will mirror the dessert's sweetness, while the acidity in that product will cut through the butter and the crust. You could also try a semi-sweet Perry for a little bit of a floral lift in the glass. If you're like me and you really go for the pumpkin or squash pies, then you might want to try a spice cider or a Keeved cider. I mentioned that earlier. A Keeved cider could go with the main dish, especially if you find a Keeved cider that's has a very high tannic structure. Many of the Keeved ciders out in the market, and we don't have too many in the U.S. I'm thinking about Renaissance Orchards out in Washington State. There, Chris has a beautiful Keeved cider. That would really be a nice accentuation to a pumpkin pie, because the caramel and spice notes really play beautifully with the pumpkin's really earthy richness and that nutmeg and clove spices that you have there. And one kind of fun way to kind of serve that, going back to the glassware again, is serve that in a slightly chilled glass, a very small glass. It's okay if it's like a little brandy sniffer glass too. Don't sweat it too much. But that little chill in it would make it kind of like, ooh, wow. And if you have a little bit of whipped cream on the top, ooh la la, that's really nice. Another big fun pie to have is that pecan pie, maybe bread pudding. That would go better with a barrel-aged cider or a fortified cider, because the woody vanilla, the depth of it that you get from a barrel-aged cider and the higher ABV typically that goes with it will really complement the caramelized sugar and that kind of toasted nut flavoring. So far we're talking about ice cider, late harvest cider, spice cider, Keeve cider, all those kind of like sweet ciders. And you could ask for that at your your local store. Barrel-aged cider, the fortified cider. When we say fortified, there's a lot of makers here in the U.S. who are making fortified cider. And that is classically where you are adding maybe a little bit of iced cider to your cider finish to back sweeten it. So do take note on that. Another fortified type of drink would be a pommeau, that French pommeau, which is fresh pressed apple juice with Calvados, aged for a minimum of 18 months, very specific with certain apple varieties. That would go really nicely. I might not even serve that with the dessert. I might have that after the dessert with a little bit of coffee on the side. If you have chocolate desserts, sometimes we'll have a little chocolate pudding pie. Try Perry. Perry with tannins or an iced Perry would go really well with chocolate. Maybe you have somebody brought a box of chocolate. That's a great time to pull out the Perry, because Perry aromatics, they lift the cocoa, while the residual sugars will echo like a chocolate mousse or a tart. So just kind of bear that in mind. If you could get yourself a good Perry, do it.
I must say, Rhea, I am liking where this is going.
I figured you would, Perry Pear, but you know better than I that Perry really is the celebratory drink and is so underestimated.
Well, then it is time that everyone gets in the know.
Exactly, Perry Pear, and that's what we're doing. Let's keep on moving on because we have a little bit more to talk about with Perry.
Well, then I would say, roger that.
Oh, brother. Moving on.
Let's say you're serving cheese and fruit plate, which is a little bit more of a European style, but you can see it at the dinner table here in Thanksgiving in the U.S. In that case, a still cider or a sparkling Perry, perfect match with a little cheese plate, because it will really refresh your palate after a heavy meal, and it's a great bridge between dessert and conversation. I mean, Perry says it all, doesn't it?
Indeed, Rhea. That is exactly what I would say. If you could have that option on your table, always go for a Perry. But I would like to add a few more sentences to this particular episode, because I do not think we have covered everything there is for Perry. May I proceed?
I want to go to my basketball game, so can we move on with this episode?
Okay, look. We're almost done. We're almost on our way out of here. I think we're finished with the desserts. Get Perry. Get a collab like an apple, a cider, and Perry.
Yes, that's fine.
I like that idea.
And, if you are out in the Pacific Northwest, check out Wildcraft. They even have Medlars cider, which is really delightful too.
I love Wildcraft and what Sean is doing.
Yeah, really outstanding product there. So there's a lot to be had. Let's just now roll out with what's going to be at our Thanksgiving table. What do you say?
Keep it rolling.
Okay, Mr. Quince, here we go. All right, with this one, I'm going to go a little traditional, and it was something that was taught to me by Lisa Lairs. It's actually called a Lisa, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, Lairs are like the OG of OG distillers in the U.S. They have the product called Applejack. I like the straight Applejack, and I'm going to make that with a little bit of that brandy, that apple brandy, with a little bit of cranberry juice. And instead of cider, I'm going to just be using some club soda or a seltzer with a little lemon on the side. And that way we kind of have a little bit of a kick, but not too much. And I really enjoy that cocktail. I got turned on to that back in 2023, and it's a little bit of my go-to now. It's a really fun celebratory drink. So we'll start with that cocktail. And then during the main, I do have a bottle from Bent Ladder Cidery. They're kind enough to send me some bottles not too long ago. And there's a Kingston Black in there that I know it's just going to pair perfectly with that turkey that we are cooking outside. I heat up the rocks, and it just is this cool little oven steam. I have a couple old hoods from old grills that I save, and I covered that turkey that's in a pan, and it's really being cooked by the hot rocks that surround that pan. So you get this immersion of almost like, not a sauna for the turkey because there's no water, but it does have that If you've ever been in a traditional sauna with the hot rocks and they're on the ground and you bring them in from the fire, there's a certain sweetness and smokiness to that. And so the Kingston Black Cider is going to be perfect for that. But we're also going to have on the table a Perry.
Yes, I'm quite excited for this.
And this is from the UK. It's from Wilding Cider. And it's a bottle of their November that I brought back that I've been just coveting. It really floored me. And it had this profile that was both dry and elegant and a little bit of umami type of experience with it. So we're going to have that on the table too to kind of go back and forth. And then as we move on to dessert, we're definitely going to have an ice cider from Eden Specialty Cider. That's kind of a go-to, a standard. And then afterwards, as it goes on, I then like to bring out the Calvados. And I have a number of different Calvados, but I've really been enjoying this one particular family in the Domfront region. So this is a very Perry Calvados, and that's the Le Morton. We're going to be visiting them on the upcoming Totally Cider Tour de France. It was absolutely exquisite. So that's a nice, after we've walked around a little bit, everybody comes back, have a little bit of Calvados and a little bit of coffee on the side. So that's what we're having. What do you say? Should we start getting everything ready for that and getting this episode out so folks have a little bit of time between now and Thanksgiving to get their own glasses ready for their feast?
Perhaps we should mention our friends at Press Then Press.
Hey, that's a great idea, Perry Pear. We know that there are some really delicious and select ciders at our friends Press Then Press, which is based out in the Pacific Northwest, and they ship to just about every state in the U.S. There might still be some time, so as soon as you finish this episode, go online and look it up, pressthenpress.com. Good idea. Anything else?
I'm getting late for my basketball game.
Okay, Mr. Quince. Well then, without further ado, with that, I leave you here. This is Rhea Windcaller and the Talking Pommes.
Hello.
Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
Bitter sharp, strange apples, juicy and ripe. Bop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da, bop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da. Who wants a tannenbaum?
I want a tannenbaum.
Who wants to pull them down?
I'm gonna pull them down. Hey, 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 apples, bittersweet,
strange apples,
hanging high.
got them strange apples.
Forget the pie.
Strange apples, squeeze them tight. Got them strange apples. Strange apples. Strange apples. Make them pop. Pop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da, pop, 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 ba-da-doo-dee-da.
Who wants a tannenbaum?
I want a tannenbaum.
Who wants to pull them down?
I'm gonna pull them down. Hey, 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 apples.
Come and see. Plenty strange apples for you and me. Strange apples. Strange apples. Strange apples.
Make them pop. Pop, pop, pop.
Ba-da-doo-doo-da.
Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-dee-da. Pop, pop, pop. Ba-da-doo-dee-da. Pop, pop, pop. Pop, 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 pop.